This program is satire about true crimes and their consequences. It may, therefore, contain descriptions of violence against people and animals, strong language, as well as other triggering content, and may not be suitable for those under the age of 16. We neither endorse nor condone any illegal actions. So please, don't go chopping anybody up. Oh, let's hang out. We haven't seen each other in a while. Like, boom, bada bing, bada boom, bada boom. You know?
In the U.S., someone commits a murder every 30 minutes. Many of those killers are convicted and then imprisoned because criminals are dumb. During this podcast, we will examine where they went wrong and analyze their mistakes. We're not dumb enough to kill, but if we were, we would kill smarter.
Well, welcome, guys, to Kill Smarter. We are back once again. I am one of your hosts. I am writer, comedian, actor Jay Burns. And joining me, as always, the Henry David Thoreau and my Walt Whitman, Aaron Lychecker.
The bookworms are going to be like, yes, I love this podcast.
Yes, that's who's going to be loving this podcast.
Yeah. How are you today?
I'm good. How about you, my friend?
I'm
Good.
doing well.
That is wonderful to hear.
I gotta tell you, I was up past midnight last night, which at our age is like,
It's like
I might as well have been doing 8 balls for 3 days straight. And now, like, I woke up, I'm like, oh. So I got a slow start to the day, but other than that, it's been a great day. Had some great fish tacos tonight.
Well, thankfully tonight we're not talking about a cannibal, so you don't have to worry about those fish tacos coming back on you.
Yeah,
So you ready for tonight's criminal?
I am ready.
All right, tonight we're going to be talking about Granny Giggles.
Granny Giggles.
Granny, which sounds like a bad 80s horror film.
I was gonna say this sounds like something I would have like rented
Yeah.
at like Major Video on a Friday night when all of my other friends are out, on dates.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Granny Giggles, look at the back. Does this have nudity?
Yeah.
I wonder.
Exactly.
So,
It's like
which is
Granny
how I
Giggles,
based.
It's Granny Giggles, some red vines, and some Mike and Ike's. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
which
your
is how
night.
when I was used to peruse the video store. That's how I chose the movies I wanted to see. I was like, well, this is gonna
This
have
one has
nudity.
nudity.
Like, how can I slip this past my parents? I'd be like, oh yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
That's how you have to do it. All right, well, let's get down to
Granny
it. So
Giggles.
we'll
Oh,
start
let's
with
hear about
on
this.
October 12th, 1954, Samuel Doss died after a long hospital stay of what started as flu-like symptoms and was eventually diagnosed as a severe digestive tract infection. But what it turned out to be was a huge amount of arsenic given to him by his then wife, Nannie Doss, known as Granny Giggles. Nannie was born Nancy Hazel in November of 1905. She was one of 5 children of farmers Jim and Louisa Hazel in Blue Mountain, Alabama. The children stayed and worked on the farm instead of attending school, splitting their time between household and farm chores. Nannie, you all right over there?
I am fine.
You're
Keep
just
it
like,
going, boss. I'm good.
Nannie's father was a hard-nosed, overbearing man who forbade Nannie and her sisters from wearing makeup and attractive clothing so that he could prevent the girls from being molested by other men. He refused to even let them go to dances or social events. And during a family trip to southern Alabama, Nannie, aged 7 at this point, hit her head on a metal bar on the train seat in front of her when there was a sudden stop. And for years after, she suffered severe headaches, blackouts, and depression. Nannie blamed the accident for these issues as well as her mental instability. And I always find there's a couple of serial killers out there that either they started off as psychopaths and like killed animals and whatnot, or there's like some sort of traumatic brain injury.
Yes, there's the
And-
ones that hit their head on a
Yeah,
train.
exactly.
But hold on a second. So the arsenic came before the
No,
hit?
that was just that was a writer's choice of setting the scene of who this was. I'm going back in time now.
Okay, now
the
we're going
original
back in
stuff.
time. Okay. Yes. Ooh. Well, I mean, I wouldn't have hit my head. I'm not going to talk about killing smarter yet, how I would have done it smarter, because I think the whole thing is, I mean, this gets deep because now we're talking about, did she know? Did she want to, or was she like,
yeah, and that's really kind of the thing with her. She's we'll go into some more details, but like there's definitely other underlying circumstances, and was the traumatic brain injury just the switch? You know what I mean? Was that the thing that kept her from becoming a killer versus not?
oh,
So let's.
Yeah,
let's keep going, and then I'll give you a little bit more of a background.
Yeah, of course.
And then we go in. So, trying to escape her abusive and controlling father, teenage Nanny took to reading romance magazines. She daydreamed about living an idyllic life with her imaginary future husband. As a teenager, her time reading Lonely Hearts columns and romance novels would be short-lived. And at age 16, Nanny met Charlie Braggs in the linen factory where they both worked. Only 4 months later, they were married. And they were actually, so this is a little fact I forgot to write down, but their father, Nanny's father, actually blessed the relationship. They started talking to each other, and they were getting close. And oddly, her father was like, "Yep, let's go ahead and get this. You guys can't do anything until you get married." And so, after only about 4 months, decided to let them get married.
We're talking about like an old school dad here.
Oh yeah, this guy's like
old
farmer. Yeah,
old farmer. And I gotta say, who knows? Maybe the way that he kept his daughter from dances and made her wear these, clothes that were unassuming. That could have could have been holding in some stuff there that wouldn't have come out until unless she hit herself in the head with a metal bar on a train. It was like it was like everything was like building up, all this sexual tension with, I'm sure she had, because she's a growing lady, like not being able to go to dances, that'll fuck you up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So like, I think, and like, having an overbearing father like that, I think it was all like up to the top. It was her bin was filled.
Yeah. And
and then that knocked it off. That knocked the lid off. It's like, okay, I'm crazy.
And it's funny too, like a lot of like overly sexualized murderers, serial killers, often there is like physical sexual abuse. Yes. Or it's like there's a couple, like and I hate to keep referencing, but Jeffrey Dahmer was one of those, like, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like his mother or his father was very, very like, you're not allowed to touch yourself, you're not allowed to touch, you know what I mean? And it was so repressive that when he could express it, it was volatile. There's like a middle of the road you got to meet at. Right, exactly.
I mean, that's, if you look at historically, if you look at, like you said, if you look at serial killers and all this stuff, if you go back far enough, there is a part where, okay, that might be where it started.
Oh, 100%. There's always. So between 1921 and 1927, Charlie Braggs and Nanny had 4 children together, and the happy couple lived with Charlie's mother. Charlie was the only child of an unwed mother who ruled over Nanny with as strict and abusive a hand as her father did before. And the stress of this difficult living situation caused Nanny to start not only drinking, but smoking very heavily. Charlie and Nanny's marriage began to deteriorate, each speculating correctly of the other's infidelity. Now, in 1927, Nanny and Charlie's 2 middle children died under mysterious circumstances. And I'm going to be very honest with you, mysterious circumstances comes up a lot in Nannie Doss's life. A heck of a lot. Yeah.
Nanny giggles.
Yeah, exactly. And at the time, food poisoning was suspected, as both children previously were perfectly healthy prior to their deaths. Now, this was the last straw for the marriage, and soon Charlie actually took their firstborn child, Melvina, and fled, leaving newborn. What's that?
Now, I was gonna say, like, okay, so this is the 20s. Do you think it was easier to murder back then?
Of course it
And
was.
get away with it. And
Yeah,
get
there's
away
no
with it.
DNA. I mean, they're barely just doing, fingerprint evidence. There's no
Yeah.
sort of like hair evidence. It's very, very easy. And also, I think a lot of people were just, especially for a woman, no one would sit there and go, well, this sweet lady would absolutely murder this guy. Especially when it looks like food poisoning or it looks like something
Yeah.
like that. I don't think you're right. I just don't think it would be assumed.
Continue. I'm sorry.
That's
I just
all
want to
right,
bring
no
that up
worries.
because I was like, oh, the 20s. I was like, it's so easy to do any crime back then. All you had to do is get out of there.
That was the only way. That was the only thing to worry about. So yeah, indeed. So Charlie took the firstborn child, Melvina, and fled, and left newborn Florin behind with Nanny and Charlie's mother. So Nanny was still living with Charlie's mother when Charlie and the firstborn child left. Now, Briggs maintained he left not because of the infidelities, but because he was frightened of Nanny. Now, in the summer of 1928, Charlie returned. He had met a new woman, and they had a child of their own. He returned to give Melvina back and serve Nanny with divorce papers. So with no ring on her finger anymore, Nanny turned to the place she once escaped to as a teenage girl, the Lonely Hearts College. Nanny began corresponding with a man who would send her letters, and both romantic and racy. And in kind, Nanny sent racy letters and photos back, and it didn't.
Oh,
yes.
The first selfie nudes.
Well, this is what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay.
Because it's very specific. It says racy letters and photos in the couple of articles I had read. There was quite a few.
You can't
articles
take your own photos back then.
Well, this is just it. Someone has to develop those. Like, you can take your own photo, but someone has to develop those. Like, someone's gonna see that. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering how racy they are, because also it is 1928, it's 1928 at this point in time.
Giant bush.
Well, I mean, is it bush, or is it just like, oh, look, I can see her knees. Like, I know it's not the Victorian.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
you know what I mean?
Those
Like,
sexy ankles.
How racy is this? Is she just
cha? Yeah. And now see her ankles. Oh, the sexy ankles. Oh my god. Like, oh my god. I think I saw some elbow. It's like, you see the way they dressed back then. Yeah, it was like long.
I mean, it's not Victorian time, so I mean, I don't think it would be like ankle is too crazy. But
no, because you had the flappers.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were assuming pretty risque.
Like décolletage was being shown, and some deep cuts in the leg, that kind of thing.
Naked in a bathtub full of gin.
I mean, that is ultimately how I want all of my women, naked in a bathtub before.
Oh my god, she was the first OnlyFans. She was like the first. She was like the first Playboy model. Nanny Giggles.
She was
Giggling Nanny.
Yeah, that's it. Nanny Giggles. You wait until you see pictures of this woman.
Oh my god, I was just saying, was she a looker?
She's not my cup of tea. I wouldn't think so, but
compare her to a famous person now.
Oh, that's tough.
Would you do her, and is she hot? Are two different questions.
Meryl Streep plus like maybe 40 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
like
right.
She's a looker. Like I can see the appeal, but like I also can kind of not see the appeal.
Okay. Because I mean,
Go ahead.
As we go and we learn about these killers, I mean, they all had some appeal.
Oh yeah.
To get the guy or the girl first, like.
And it seemed like she's a very charming woman. Like it seemed. I mean, she has to be somewhat interesting if you know what I mean. She ended up being married 5 times. You know what I mean. And everyone kind of falls in love with her in a way and lets her get away with all this stuff. So it makes sense that she has to have some personality.
Married 5 times. Were all her husbands not killed? Her husbands weren't killed, were they?
Not all of them, no.
I was gonna say, was it her sister? Do we have a Soy Marinax murder type thing going on? Was Nanny Giggles never the suspect? Her sister. Oh, maybe you got a face. You got a face on, like you got something to hide. You're hiding something until the end. So I'll just continue.
I don't know. You may see. There's a lot to her story. I mean, we're only in 1928, and she makes it all the way to 1965. So I mean,
oh my goodness,
we got some time. So Nanny and Charlie, Nanny and Charlie started, Nanny and this other man started corresponding, and it didn't take long for Nanny to get absolutely smitten with this new man. And in 1929, Robert Franklin Harrelson became Nanny's second husband. Now, Nanny took Melvina and Florin to Jacksonville, Florida, to be with her new husband. And it
Melvina
wasn't-
and Florin. I'm sorry. This family
Yeah.
tree is just, there's a lot to this family tree. So
So-
Melvina and Florin are the kids from the first marriage.
Right. So they had 4 kids in the first marriage. So they
Two
had
of them died.
Malvina, 2 kids in the middle, and Florin. And the 2 kids in the middle died mysteriously. So only Malvina and Florin are left.
They died mysteriously with knives in their skulls.
Food poisoning, but
Food poisoning, yeah.
she's got a, she's got an MO.
You don't want any of Nanny Giggles' eggs, okay?
No, you do
or,
not.
or you don't want her baking you a pie.
Especially after you piss her off. Don't do that
Yeah,
at all.
right. Oh, it's okay. Here. I made you this lovely. I can't even think of the fucking dessert I was thinking of. This lovely creme brulee.
I don't know how fancy
I
they
would
were
die
back
by
then.
creme brulee if I was hungry enough. I was like, you ever think about this? Like, is there a dessert that if you were on death row and you were gonna die by poisoning, what would your dessert of choice be to eat and then die?
I mean, that's tough. I'm going to be honest with you. That is a tough choice for me because I'm a diabetic. I'm a type 1 diabetic.
It wouldn't
And
matter
so-
anyway. You're gonna die.
I understand, but that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like, I could actually, if I had a something sweet enough, I might go in, it might put me into a diabetic coma.
I could go crazy too in a way where I would have something with a lot of dairy because I don't sit well with dairy and it wouldn't matter.
So you're
It's like I don't
so-
feel well. I'm gonna have the shits, but before I have the shits, I keel over. So I was like, you know what?
The worst case scenario in that case, if it's like you're on the electric chair and you're getting the shits while you're being electrocuted.
Hey man, that's someone else's problem.
True, absolutely it is. At that point in time, man, not my fault, not my circus, not my monkeys.
I look at the. Oh, actually, you can't because the mask is over you. But if it was like in the movies where like they just kill you, I would like, and I was shitting myself in the electric chair. I'd look over at the guy who flicked the switch and like give him a wink, like you're cleaning this up, baby. Have some fried turd. Oh, there's a sentence I never thought I would say.
And thank you for saying it. It wasn't until they moved in that Nanny actually realized Harrelson was a violent alcoholic. He also had a criminal record of assault. Now, despite this, the couple stayed together for 16 years. And during the marriage, Melvina actually gave birth to 2 grandchildren. The first, Robert, in 1943, and 2 years later, another baby who died soon after birth under mysterious circumstances. Although it was never confirmed, Melvina actually, who had a very difficult birth, when she was exhausted in the hospital, she believed she saw her mother stick a hat pin into the baby's head. Doctors couldn't give a
pin.
Yeah, hat pin. So have you ever seen a hat pin?
Probably, but
So what it is for women, they would wear hats. They would put this giant pin in.
oh,
to
okay,
keep
yeah.
the hat still. But so it's a long pin. It's about this big, you know what I mean? It's
Sure.
a couple of inches. So doctors couldn't prove this, but not long after, Melvina was actually visiting her father. And after a fight with her mother, she had left Robert in her nanny's care. And Robert died mysteriously while under Nanny's care. Now, the death was ruled by asphyxia from an unknown cause.
I love how no one's getting suspicious of Nanny Giggles
Nobody is getting suspicious of this woman yet.
because
And-
they don't want to die from mysterious causes, so they're keeping their mouth shut.
Well, again, I think she's such a sweet woman. You know what I mean? Again, you see pictures of her. She looks like she's going to bake you cookies. You know what I mean? She really is a sweet lady looking. But, so I think it's one of those things where I don't think anyone just would have assumed this by this woman.
Yeah.
And all of this didn't stop Nanny she actually had a $500 life insurance policy on the child. She was able to collect that on the child's death. Now, $500.
$500 in 1920 something.
That's a little over $7,500 in today dollars.
That's
a substantial amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could
I
do
would-
some stuff with that.
Of course you can.
Now, as life continued, on the night of the surrender of the Japanese to the Allied powers, which ended World War II, the world celebrated. Now, no one celebrated more than Harrelson, Nanny's second husband. Harrelson drank heavily, and later that evening, as the world cheered peace between nations, Harrelson sexually assaulted Nanny. Now, the next day, Nanny was tending her roses, and she found Harrelson's secret stash of corn whiskey. Now, Nanny took the rat poison she had lying around and laced Harrelson's moonshine.
Oh, God.
I know, right?
I just can't stop thinking about the Muppet Babies. Every time you say
that
nanny, I'm thinking, nanny?
Man, just
Like-
just a pair of like green striped socks. That's all she is.
Yeah. That's the last anyone ever saw. Anything anyone ever saw like this. Oh, this one,
That
the
was the
green
last
socks.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nanny actually collected money from Harrelson's life insurance. She collected so much money, she was actually able to buy some land and a house. So this brought to husband number 3, Artie Lanning. Artie Lanning came into Nanny's life after placing a Lonely Hearts column ad. And again, this is another reoccurring thing. She would always go back to these Lonely Hearts, you know what I mean? Essentially, like the Lonely Hearts columns would be like a Plenty of Fish type of thing. So people would go on there and say, hey, you know, me Tarzan, you Jane, let's hook up.
Yeah.
And if that sounded appealing, you'd write the person P.O. Box 404, Wichita, Kansas.
2 months later, Western Union, the Wells Fargo wagon comes bringing.
Call me Klondike 575. So
that's a long time to wait for a rejection.
I agree 100%. Letters going back and forth, and they're not like, most of them are not close. I mean, she was in Alabama when she met Harrelson, who was in Jacksonville, Florida. So I mean they're close, but still a couple of days, maybe even more, because they have train travel, but they're not necessarily flying mail as much back then.
Yeah.
But even thinking of that, let's say maximum 2 days or minimum 2 days that it takes from one letter to get to another letter, one letter back and forth. They were married within months. You know what I mean? Yeah. Every single time, 4 months, and she's marrying this guy.
Yeah.
Every single time. And again, so the same thing with Artie. So Artie was in Lexington, North Carolina, and she was in Jacksonville, Florida. And the couple were married within days of physically meeting each other, literally days. Now, although Lanning, too, was an alcoholic womanizer, it was actually Nanny this time who slept around the most. When she was home, she was a doting housewife. She was attentive to Lanning's needs. She cleaned the house. She even added poison to some of his meals. And Lanning died in 1952 of what everyone thought was heart failure due to his excessive drinking.
So wait a minute. Poison to some of his meals.
Yes.
So obviously the poison was not enough to kill him at first. So like, what'd she do? Like kind of like dose him?
That's what it seems like from everything I was reading. It sounded like she kind of gave small doses to kind of make him feel sick and compliant, and just kept upping those doses until he actually passed.
Jesus Christ. I gotta say, so far it's hard to find out how I would actually kill some harder.
I mean,
she's been
she's
getting away
scot
free.
I mean, her body count at this point is, after Artie Lanning, I think that's 2 husbands, 2 kids. You know what I mean? Like, she's got 4 bodies going. That's not bad.
All right, I know. Let's continue, because I feel it's going to get even.
So Lanning died in 1952 of what everyone thought was heart failure due to his excessive drinking. And in fact, her neighbors supported her during Artie's funeral. Now, once again, Nanny was smart. She banked the life insurance money after Artie's death. And the couple's home, which had been left to Lanning's sister, mysteriously burned down soon after Artie's death.
Come on, Nanny, Christ.
Seriously. Like, all the time. Like, everything about her is like, mysteriously happened.
What decade is this now? Are we in
1952?
The 30s?
We're up to.
We're in the 50s. Okay, we're in the 50s. Okay,
we've sped up a little bit, because she was married to Harrelson for 16 years, and that was a majority of that. And there was not a lot that happened in that time. So
that's what I always think about. Like, so there was like a good 15 years of like nice memories.
Yeah.
And like, isn't this? It's weird. And like, then she slips.
Well, I mean, if you look at Harrelson, who she was married to the longest, his thing was, yes, he was a womanizer. Yes, he was an alcoholic. He probably abused her, certainly verbally. But she raised a house and a home with her grandchildren, because Melvina had children at that point in time, or at least at the end of it in the 40s. But it wasn't until he got so drunk and he raped her that she was like, nope, I'm done with this. So, I mean, she put up with a lot of shit with this guy, too.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. So, with money in the bank and nowhere to go, Nanny actually left North Carolina, and she went to live with her bedridden sister, Dovie. Now, during this time, Nanny joined a dating service called the Diamond Circle Club. And there, she would meet the next man of her dreams, Richard Morton, number 4. Now, Morton and Nannie were married in 1952 in Emporia, Kansas. And although Morton did not have a drinking problem like the others, he did have an adultery problem.
Oh, well, I feel like a lot of these, like, I feel like cheating was huge in like the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Everyone had adultery problems.
I don't think everybody did. I mean, yes, people did. But I think it's the same thing. I think it was so much easier to get away with that back then.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? Like this guy could be like, Richard Morton could just be like, hey, I got to go to work in, Wichita, Kansas for the weekend. My job's telling me I got to go. Sorry, I won't see you for 2 weeks. Peace.
So as long as you had like a conscience that let you do it, you could get away with it.
To be fair, that's true of pretty much every crime.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, a lot of people nowadays get caught cheating because they're not smart about their social media, and that's actually a lot. That's actually how a lot of. That's why a lot. I mean, I take it back. I think a lot more people cheat now because social media makes it so easy, and you're in contact with people.
I don't know. I feel like to me at least, I think social media makes you see more. I don't think more is necessarily happening. You just see more.
Well, I'm just saying, wouldn't you say there are people you're in contact with that you wouldn't normally be in contact with if this was the old days, now you see someone's Facebook profile, it's like, oh, let's hang out. We haven't seen each other in a while. Like boom, bada bing, bada boom, bada boom, like it's.
Wait, what was that? What did they do?
Bada bing, bada boom,
Okay. And so
I'm just saying, like, there's more. I don't know if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
There's more. It's easier to.
I don't necessarily think it's easy though. Like I don't think it's easier. I just think it's more.
Oh, it's easy. I'm just kidding.
I'm not saying it's not easy. Trust me. But I also think I think there's more nowadays. You don't get away with it as long. You know what I mean? Because there's so much transparency everywhere. Like. Social media and everything. So like, I think a lot of people were living with two families. I mean, how many times in like the 70s and 80s, people were saying like, oh, I never knew my father had, or my mother had a second family living somewhere else.
That's insane. Yeah.
You know
now there's too many whistleblowers now. Like seriously.
Yes, that's the problem. Too many whistleblowers. These people
can't get away.
Knock it off.
I'm just saying, try having a second family nowadays. No, because like,
oh yeah, you couldn't.
No way.
And everyone
unless you lived in some like Midwest, I don't know.
Even then, everyone has cameras everywhere. I mean, everything is more transparent because everyone's got cameras everywhere. You see everything. Yep. It's posted everywhere. It's just not as open. I mean, it's way too open, and you wouldn't be able to have an affair. I mean, not that any of us would have an affair.
No, but I'm just saying. I see what you're saying. You're saying that more people are being exposed because of social media.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that those affairs wouldn't even be happening if it weren't for social media. Because people meet on social media and want to like hang out and like they get, they're talking to people they wouldn't necessarily be talking to, or.
Yeah, but I think the people who are having those affairs, they're going to have those affairs, whether they're people that they've met and had like have known all their lives, or they're literally just somebody in a bar they meet. You know what I mean? I don't think there's a separation as far as that. I mean, in my experience with the history and life, and
there was that website for strictly adultery where you
the one that got hacked.
Yeah.
And then all right, so where were we? Emporia, Kansas, right? There we go.
1952.
What's that?
We're in the 50s, early 50s.
Yeah, 1952. Morton and Nannie got married in 1952 in Emporia, Kansas. And like I said, so he didn't have a drinking problem. He did have an adultery problem. But so the problem, this adultery problem, this didn't go discovered by Nannie for some time, actually, because during this, Nannie's mom, Louisa, actually came to live with the couple. She had recently broken her hip in a fall, and she needed a caretaker. But her time with Nannie would be short-lived because after
Let me guess.
Months,
she mysteriously died.
She would die mysteriously as well.
Oh,
not only
man.
that, don't forget that Nannie had moved in with her sister Dovie.
Who
died
mysteriously.
Absolutely. So both of them died not too long after each other.
I'm starting to think that the smarter that we want to talk about at the end of this is the police and anyone involved, because
so far
I don't want to have
solid.
I don't want to have my first stumper. Okay, like I'm stumped.
I mean, she's 30 years into murdering.
That has to be some sort of record.
I don't know. Well, I'll have to look.
Killing spree of 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to think we're up to 1953 now.
Yeah.
And her first murder was probably what, 19, well, was the grandchildren, right?
She did take a hiatus. She did go on hiatus for
Yeah, she had the
15
16
years.
years in between. She had her first two children, so that was like the 1920s, at least 1927. So between 1927 and let's say, so the end of her killing was about 1955. So I mean, that's less than about 25 years worth of murder. That's pretty good. I mean,
it's pretty good record.
Not that we should be praising a murderer, but like,
no, but I mean,
good job. I mean, come on.
I mean, a job well done is a job well done.
It's true. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're gonna murder, you might do it as long as you can, I guess.
Exactly, right? So in May of 1953, Nanny would actually, after her mother and her sister died, mysteriously, Nanny would actually turn.
Really?
Yes, both of them died. Nanny would turn her attention on the affairs of Richard Morton. Though listed as mysterious circumstances, it is very much suspected Nanny poisoned Morton's meals as well. So in June of 1950, now Morton died in May of 1953, right?
Yes.
In June of 1953, Nanny was already getting married to another man, Samuel Doss.
That she had to have known already.
No.
Oh, Christ.
Same thing that happened. She gets in touch with these guys.
Then again, well, this goes back to the dad not letting her.
Yes.
Oh, this goes back to her dad not letting her experience relationships or love or anything like that. So now she's going with anyone that shows her any affection or any love like that. She's basically a slut, like looking for love, looking for affection.
We're not going to slut shame, but I mean,
there's no shame in that.
But you're right. I mean, I absolutely agree with this. This kind of stuff is based on, like, she would read these Lonely Hearts columns.
Yeah.
She had this fantasy in her mind.
Those Lonely Hearts things, romanticized romance is basically like a rom-com. Like, you want that life, honestly.
It's true. No, you're right. Yeah. You're 100% right. So Samuel Doss, Samuel had actually lost his family to a tornado in Carroll County, Arkansas. Now, he was a Nazarene minister, and Samuel did not drink and did not have any affairs. So far, so good.
Sammy, good boy.
He's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
And he actually might have survived his marriage with Nanny if only he had not forbade her from reading romance novels. He actually demanded she only read magazines or watch television shows that were made for educational purposes.
Oh,
I know. This guy would still be alive.
The one thing she loved from the beginning.
Yep.
He forbade.
Absolutely. And she would not continue without her beloved romance novels. So in October of 1953, she laced Samuel's afternoon tea with some arsenic. Now,
why not just say, I'm doing the romance novels. This is not going to work.
Well, I mean, this is also a time where divorce really wasn't looked upon. And this guy's a minister, so he's not going to get a divorce.
Oh, God. She really knows how to pick them.
Hey, I mean, 5 for 5 so far.
Yeah, I know.
So she laced his afternoon tea with some arsenic, and this actually didn't kill Samuel, but it did send him to the hospital with flu-like symptoms. And after a few days, the doctor saw a vast improvement and actually released him to Nanny's care. And on October 15th, she served Samuel a slice of prune cake that was heavily dosed with arsenic. Coincidentally, prune cake, yes.
I like prunes, but I don't know about a cake. That definitely sounds like a 1930s, 40s like dessert.
Well, we're 54 now. 53.
I got some prune cake, sir. Like, you don't go to Cheesecake Factory and order a prune cake.
Prune cake's not bad. I've had prune cake. I like prune cake.
Really? That sounds like just...
I'm an old man. It's like a fruit cake. You know what I mean? Like a Christmas fruit cake.
Again. another thing.
It's not much appeal. I know.
It's like, why not have a nice ambrosia while we're at it?
Oh, I love ambrosia.
Don't get me started. I do love an ambrosia. Anytime I bring it,
don't besmirch ambrosia's name.
No, I won't. Are you kidding? My grandmother used to make the best ambrosia, and anytime we had a holiday party, for work or something, and it was like a potluck, I always said at the staff meeting, I'm going to bring the ambrosia. Unless someone else called it, and guess what? No one else is bringing ambrosia.
No one else is bringing ambrosia.
I brought the ambrosia.
Just like no one's bringing prune cake. No one's bringing ambrosia. none of these delightful things anyone's bringing at all. I don't know why, but all those old foods are so good for a reason. They list it. They, other than being laced with arsenic, they are all so good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a new, what there's like. I don't think anyone's gonna be craving like a vegan gluten-free brownie.
I don't know. I like a good custard or a pudding. You know what I mean? Like that's enjoyable to me.
I mean, me too.
That's my jam.
It's like a British dessert.
It is kind of. Well,
actually, did you know? And I say pie, but I'd say pie. But did you know? Like, I mean, obviously, you know this. You're an Anglophile, much as myself. They don't even have. There's a podcast listen to with these two guys in Britain. Like they were talking about strawberry pie. They don't have that in England. They think that sounds disgusting.
Well,
that fruit is in pie. That fruit is in pie.
No. It's no. What they find disgusting is the American version of like super hyper sweet fruit pies. So like they'll have a lot of like strawberry rhubarb. That's definitely a thing in England, and raspberry pie. But
they're more or less talking about how when you say pie in England, you're thinking like a beef pie.
Yes. Yeah.
Pie is not
savory pies than.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like pie is not necessarily a sweet thing in the UK. Like you don't think about it like, oh, dessert pie.
But even their dessert pies are not super sweet. They're very much not sugary. Like Americans make sugary ass pies. Like we are all about the sugar.
Yeah, of course we are.
And I only know this because not only am I an Anglophile, I am also a member of the American Pie Council, a lifetime member of the American Pie Council.
Diabetic Anglophile. That's how you introduce yourself. From now, like, guys, I'm writer, comedian, diabetic Anglophile, member of the National Pie Committee of the UDES.
Like how many hyphenates can I get in there?
You should just put that on top of your resume. Here's my headshot on the back. If you notice, I'm been a member of the Pie Association of America.
By the way, do you have any pies you need sampling? Please. So coincidentally, though, at the time that on October 15th, when she served Samuel this slice of prune cake that had a heavy dose of arsenic, Nannie had just happened to take out 2 different life insurance policies on Samuel Doss.
No one's raising an eyebrow to this.
Well, that actually did raise an eyebrow because he had just left the hospital. The doctors were very surprised by his sudden death because he had made a quick recovery. And so one of the doctors at the hospital had ordered an autopsy, and that was the real undoing, which revealed the heavy amounts of arsenic. And almost immediately, Nannie was arrested. She actually confessed to killing. Ready? Here's the grand total that she confessed to, though. 4 husbands, her mother, her sister, her grandson, and one of her mothers-in-law. That's not a bad...
a partridge in a pear tree.
I know. Although
Jesus,
probably was not just her grandson, but also 2 of her kids too. So it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people. But she confessed to only 8.
Tell you why I like Nannie. I like Nannie giggles. She went classic poison.
It's true, and
she's not chopping anybody up.
Long time.
Yeah, and that's the way. I mean, especially back in the day.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely, it is. And so in May 17th, 1955, she actually pled guilty to the only charge she was brought up on, which is the murder of Samuel Doss. She actually was not brought up on any other charges. So her other 3 husbands, her mother, sister, grandson, and mothers-in-law, and one mother-in-law, actually, she never was charged on. So technically, those are all unsolved crimes. She only said Samuel Doss was the one she murdered, was sentenced. And she was sentenced to life in prison because the death penalty was considered not acceptable for a woman, even one as murderous as she was. And eventually, Nannie Doss died of leukemia in the hospital ward of the Oklahoma State Penitentiary, and that was in 1965. And she got her nickname, the Giggling Granny, because anytime she was in court or she was talking to prosecutors, she had a nervous laugh, which a lot of people do. But when she was confronted with her crimes, she started to giggle and laugh, and she would have a little smile on her face every time someone mentioned one of these things. And so people gave her the Giggling Granny nomination.
She had a nervous laugh when she was confronted, and that's something I would want to look up. I wonder if there's any audio, because that's creepy.
Yeah, I didn't think to look up any audio. I mean, it's funny, like every picture of her, if you go online, they're really, really almost.
I'm gonna do it right now. Yeah,
you should. Almost half of them they look staged. You know what I mean? Like the ones that she's with prosecutors or she's with an attorney or a police officer, you know what I mean, a detective. They're all very staged looking. Like, all right, guys, we need you standing here. Nanny, I need you to smile. Prosecutor, if you can look slightly bewildered.
Oh my God.
Right?
She looks like a lunch lady.
She like, but you get what I'm saying when I said like Meryl Streep plus 40 pounds, like that kind of look.
Yep.
Like she definitely does, and she's not unattractive, and she does have like a warmth about her too, you know.
Yeah,
it's really strange. But it's so strange to me that like this woman who really does look so sweet and so innocent, and like again, it goes back to the question, like, was it this traumatic brain injury that caused this, the switch to go on that allowed her to kind of do these things, or was it something which she always, or is it one of those things that she always had this murderous intent? But you know what I mean, like getting raped or getting, you know, violently beaten up or something like those were the things that sort of allowed it to happen. Because she didn't confess. She confessed to everything else, but she didn't confess to murdering her two middle children. So it could be one of those things that literally is a mysterious coincidence. Again,
I mean, it's like the 20s. How were they young? I mean, they could have.
They were
twins.
Young. They were very, very young at the time. I mean, this was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like when they died, it
had to be 22,
1927. So
27, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, at the time, I mean, the first child was born in 1921, so they have to be under the age of 6 years old, between like 3 and 6.
Oh, okay. I mean, dude, this is the 20s, man. Anything could have been happening then. They can be that now. If they looked at it, would be maybe if they dug them. They can't exhume the bodies now. I'm sure they're too. It's been 100 years.
Yeah,
but
I'm pretty sure
I mean, if they, you know, DNA, what it is now, or like, you know, and like medical things, what they could do now with medical procedures and stuff like that, looking at things and like taking a scrap of bone and like be like, oh, this is why. It's like,
once you said it, I agree with you completely. Like it's 1920, you know, 1927, and it could be something as simple as she bought bad pork, and the kids got, you know, trichinosis or something like that, you know what I mean, or, you know, something, you know, botulism, or, you know, it really could be just that simple. I mean, why would she confess to all the other murders and not these two?
Now I'm racking my brain thinking how two kids could just die.
Well, that's just it. I mean, it makes sense. It would be food poisoning. I mean, that's what the doctors thought it was, because they're fine one day and the next day they're 2 days later they're dead.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things. They literally had just gone to a doctor's appointment, not too, like maybe a week or so, I think, if I read correctly, a week like or so before. And so that's how the doctors were like, yep, they were perfectly healthy beforehand. That's why it has to be food poisoning.
So weird. But Nanny got away with it.
I mean, technically, yeah, she did.
Yeah. I mean, 40 years, that's a good run.
That's a very good run. I mean, 20, 30, 35. Because you got to think, if that was the first killing, 1927. Her last.
Oh, she died. She died in 60s. She wasn't. She was already caught.
She confessed in 1955. So the last killing was October of 1953 was the last murder. So
she confessed in 55.
Yeah, she confessed.
Yeah. And down the street, a 17-year-old was pumping the gas to go back to the future. Parallel universe.
Doc Brown and Nannie Doss live in the same same continuity.
That's awesome. That's great to think about. I love thinking about that kind of stuff. Anytime I hear like a certain year, like especially like 55, I'm like, oh, Marty was around somewhere. You know, in October, if it's October 89, 55. If that's just my obsession.
You know what blew my mind looking at reading about this and looking this up too, was like, if you look at those pictures again, so that picture where I think the one you showed on screen where she's just sitting in that chair. Yeah. She's 49.
Yeah, she looks 70.
Right. She looks like she's so old. I mean, I get it.
People didn't age well back then.
Things. Yeah, I get that. But like looking on my life, I'm like, shit, she's only 10 years older than me. Like, am I gonna look like that? I mean, yes, I am gonna look like that much crap in 10 years, but like, that's crazy.
Yeah, people didn't. It's funny, like you'll watch an old movie or whatever, and like this is like this older lady, and you finds out she's like 55.
Exactly, and you're like, what? No,
like, how old is Auntie M? How old is Auntie M in Wizard of Oz? I guarantee she's probably like 60.
Oh, I wouldn't even think she's that old.
Yeah,
even 60. I mean, that's crazy.
I just feel people matured and aged differently back then.
Well, 100%. I mean, you got to think, like, even so, going back to Nannie Doss. So Nannie Doss, she married her first husband when she was 16 years old. She had 4 kids, you know, by the time she was She had to be, just about 21 by the time she had her fourth kid. So,
I think society had different expectations for people back then.
100%.
Yeah.
They did. But also, so no, actually, yeah, it would have been about 21. But also the other thing you got to think, when she was growing up, it was a farm life. So she never went to school. She never had a school education. She was literally working on the farm, working in the house, doing chores in the house, doing farm chores for 16 years of her life. And then she went to a linen factory.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a hard living life. I mean, at 16, you're already working in a factory. That's crazy.
I mean, to think about it, there's probably people younger than that working in factories back then, like the boys, 9, 10.
Oh, I mean, 100. I mean, there is. I mean, there's actually, I mean, the whole reason there's child labor laws is because of up here in New England, Slater Mills. I mean, they would have kids literally because they're small. They could slip in between like the cotton gin machines and the machines that they had there so that they could fix things really quick. I mean, it's kids are tiny and, they have little hands and you can get in there really easy.
Yeah.
So that's the Giggling Granny Nannie Doss.
That's the Giggling Granny Nannie Doss. And I got to say,
yeah,
a good run.
Yeah.
And I thought she had me stumped. Jay. But I figured out where I would kill smarter.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Because I haven't figured out mine. I haven't figured out where she could have killed smarter. But go ahead.
Well, think about it. How'd she get caught?
Not using prune cake? Is that what?
No, she got caught by killing, like her husband just left the hospital.
Okay.
And she was in such a rush.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of patience.
Right.
And it would have been another mysterious death or death under mysterious.
Right.
Yeah. And she would have got away with it.
Yeah. I also think she might have gotten a little greedy. I think that might have been an issue. She could have, because after Robert, her grandson, who she took the insurance policy out, when she learned that she could get insurance money for some of these deaths, I think that's kind of where she got. And even this one, she took out 2 different life insurance policies.
Come on
Sam Doss before she murdered him. It's like, you got greedy.
Yeah.
She had money. She had to have had money banked. She seems like, when you read about her, she seems like she was very good about like keeping a little bit stored away just in case.
She looks like the type of person to have a little stored away for a rainy day.
Absolutely. Like this.
And she definitely didn't dress like ravishingly or.
No, but I mean, there's a coffee can buried in the yard somewhere full of Nannie Doss's money. Nannie Doss's money.
Jesus Christ. But if you look in her eyes, though, you can see the crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
you can see when you look in her eyes. I have friends on Facebook that if you look in their eyes, you're like, that person is absolutely insane. Like
I've dated 2 of them. So.
Yeah. and they're listening. Yeah,
but you're right. She definitely has that psychotic look. And again, like, I mean, it seems she's one of those murderers. We talk about, we talked about earlier about the traumatic head injury, but she's also got a lot of circumstances where it would develop a murderous rage. Sexual abuse, physical abuse. That sort of strict moral upbringing.
So like I said at the beginning, I think her hitting her head on the train was like that Jenga piece that got pulled out and everything just came tumbling down.
Yeah. She actually did. I mean, she does, as part of her confession, what?
I thought you were going to say she actually was a Jenga player. I was like, but that wouldn't make any sense, but that's...
She's actually a world champion Jenga player. I mean, who knew?
Oh, wow.
Someone from 1927 was like, playing giant Jenga on a beach somewhere.
She's playing Jenga. She's sending news. She's ahead of her time. That's what she...
You know what? She is ahead. You're 100% right with that. She's sending naked selfies. She's sexting technically.
I don't know what she looked like in her early days, but I do not want to see that.
So I couldn't find any really early pictures of her. Literally everything is from after the murder. So it looks like she never took a picture other than the race. I didn't scour the internet enough to find a racy picture of Nannie Doss.
Yeah, no. That would send up some you'd be getting flagged.
Oh yeah,
and, that'd be sending some.
I mean, also you got to think the guy at Woolworths developing that film was like, here's your photos, Nancy.
Man.
Who are they going to?
Ice cream soda on me.
Yeah, really.
Thank you for that.
Exactly. Like, thanks, Miss Hazel.
She looks like Aunt B. She looks like Aunt B from Andy Griffith.
Oh no.
To all the listeners,
yes,
just picture Aunt B. I feel like every old lady looked like that in the 50s, like in the 40s and the 50s, looked like Aunt B. Yeah, so that's how I would have killed Smart. I would have had a little bit of patience. Right. And like you said, I probably wouldn't have got I wouldn't have got his.
Yeah, to me, that's the real crux of this. I think if she didn't get greedy, there would have been at least a dozen murders, and nobody would have known what happened.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mysterious circumstances that keep popping
Fucking
up
Aunt B.
in her stories. Could you?
The whole town of Mayberry. The whole town of Mayberry died under mysterious circumstances.
You have ruined Aunt, because all I can think about now is like Don Knotts walking around going, you know, Aunt B, this is real mysterious. These circumstances don't make sense. Andy.
Say don't try the pie. As Don Knotts. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do Don Knotts.
I gotta get in the voice. Andy, don't try the pie. You're gonna die if you drink.
That's a Andy Griffith episode that got dark. You know?
Yeah, you know, really seriously.
If I know Aunt B is Nannie Doss.
When they lost Ron Howard.
Oh my god. Oh man.
I love that this episode has descended into our bad impersonations.
Yeah. Not all bad.
That's really all I want now, though. Is I really want Don Knotts like solving murders. You know what I mean? That would be enjoyable. That would be
Don Knotts solves the murders, and Andy Griffith is Matlock.
Oh, he is Matlock.
You had it. Where was that show?
Oh, Matlock is the one who prosecutes them.
If Law and Order, if Law and Order was
oh my god,
Don Knotts,
Law and Order
in the
Mayberry.
Stabler.
Oh man,
role.
Law and Order Mayberry, all about
it.
All yeah, dum 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 dum.
It'd be.
Tell me, did you see him shooting? Can you show me on the doll? Did it touch you? Andy, get the doll. I think it touched him. Man. That's awful.
Yeah, this sounds like something this sounds like a sketch that they never did on Saturday Night Live that they should have done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Law and Order Mayberry.
Yeah.
Copyright. Okay, we're copyrighting this now.
Registered trademark. Yeah.
Registered trademark. She almost tricked me with killing smarter, but I think we figured out how to kill smarter, we also figured out the way we're going to become millionaires by making Law and Order Mayberry.
I think so. I think that's how we're going to do it. And then we'll
fuck anyone who doesn't like that. Yeah, the prune cake. I'm hungry. I want some ambrosia. Let's call back to everything we talked about last time.
Exactly. Let's start from the beginning. Absolutely. Well, that's it for us, guys. I think that was a pretty fun. I had a fun time with that.
I had fun. You had fun.
Oh, man. So make sure you go on. Follow us on all of our social medias if you're not already. Make sure you go to Kill Smarter Pod on Instagram, Twitter, on YouTube, and don't forget you can we're on Facebook, but we don't have a. Do we have a? Yes, we do. We set up a Facebook page too, so you can go to Kill Smarter Pod on Facebook as well. So we love you guys. I've been Jay Burns along with
Aaron Lydecker.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Kill Smarter.
If you are a victim of a crime and need help, or you would like to donate to those in need, please contact the National Center for Victims of Crime by visiting www.victimsofcrime.org.